I founded it in the early 2000s, 2000 actually. And the whole idea is to make sure that the whole world, including our people, knew the amazing story of Black giving, that we give a higher proportion in the United States anyway of our income than any other ethnic group, that whether the gifts are small or large, we give consistently. We give over billions of people, not just millions. And we have a $23 billion economy of Black giving in the US alone. This funding supports charities and nonprofit organizations, but is also the startup funding for a lot of our businesses. And we do it so automatically that we don't even step back to collectively consider how powerful our giving has been. It's funded everything from the Underground Railroad to women's suffrage to the civil rights movement, the liberation movements in the Caribbean and in Africa and throughout the entire Black world. So it is a major source, a major financing source for the future of Black communities, especially since we're often living in circumstances where we can't get fair funding, we can't get fair access to capital. So we have, and this started way back in ancient times through Africa, and we simply have adapted those institutions and philosophies of giving for the times, not just in the US, but everywhere there is a Black community. Our giving is part of our identity, our culture. It is who we are. It's our past and our future. So that's what I do. It's always been a work of volunteerism for me, in addition to my day job, because I have just been driven to make sure we know how absolutely wonderful and powerful and actually abundant we are by people, as a people, so that we can support each other and our nations and the world for a better future.
Absolutely. I love that. And when I came across Black Philanthropy Month in my research, and I also came across you, and I said, wow, I was really intrigued by what you started, and really putting a framework for us to be able to talk about Black philanthropy, and how, because oftentimes when we hear the Black dollar and we hear about giving Black, it's always attached to consumerism, right? We get that narrative, oh, the Black folks are the consumers, and we want to get our products in front of the Black community, but we never really pay attention to that the Black community is also the same community that's driving impact in our own spaces and other spaces.
I mean, another factoid is, when there are recessions, sometimes people don't give, but what's interesting is Black giving remains pretty constant. That's how important it is to us. It's not just a transaction. It's in part how we are Black. We are all raised that we have a responsibility to pay it forward. We have all these sayings, and I'm just going to focus on the US for a minute. To whom much is given, much is expected, right? I'm sure you heard that growing up.
Yeah.
And so people think of philanthropy as a big money word that only billionaires like Bill Gates, or they heard of the Ford Foundation. But no, your grandmama who tithed every single Sunday for all of her life and taught the children to do the same. The Black church is a major philanthropic institution, as are our mosques, as are our sororities, our fraternities. And so really listen to what I'm saying. And most people think of Black people as poor, and maybe individually per capita, because we haven't had equal access to capital. Perhaps from a financial perspective, comparatively speaking, we are. But we give. Just last year, we gave $11 billion. And that's only African Americans. It doesn't even count all of the Black immigrants living in the US from all over the world. Africans alone gave $12 billion. And that's to the US and that's to their African homeland. And we're funding not just religious causes, we're funding education, we're funding healthcare in our community and other communities. And so it's a really important, empowering story for all of us to know. I mean, I'll just use the example of what happened earlier this week, and I'm not even trying to get political because this is
my notes. Go ahead, go for it.
So this is my thing. So we had initiated by Black women, 44,000 Black women who said, you know what, we're going to get on Zoom and we're raising money for our new candidate, right? Our new hope right now. And in 3 hours, they raised $1.3 million.
Yep.
That is a very appropriate live case example of the power of the Black dollar to give for love and for change and impact for not just our communities, because when we do well, everybody does well, right?
That's it.
And then that started a ripple effect. And so the next day, Black men did the same thing.
I was on
but
that
not
call.
just, and I was on, I have a sister who told me about it, sent me the information, and it was just that classic, grapevine effect, right? And now we have Latino women doing the same kind of call. We have Asian women. And so we're high tech too. We use what we have, and an important part of our work is Black Philanthropy Month. A lot of this, I had to dream, I had to design in my head, but these kinds of dreams don't become reality without people backing you up and walking by your side. And most of them were women back in 2000, and they were women from 20 different countries. Wow. There were African-American women. I was living in Minneapolis, and I noticed that for some reason, and we can get into that later if you want, in 2000, the Twin Cities had the most ethnically diverse Black population in the country. There were more Liberians, there were more Somalis, there was like the third largest Ethiopian community, the absolute largest Kenyan community. And we started coming together and we looked around and said, we're facing a lot of the same issues. What can we do together that would benefit people more?
Yeah.
And all of these sisters were using any resource that they had to put together funds and nonprofits and support businesses that would benefit our communities and the entire community. And that was the genesis of Black Philanthropy Month. It was like a United Nations of Black giving. And I say everybody has to understand what our capacity is and the actual techniques people are using. And perhaps we can start supporting each other.
Yeah.
If our societies won't support us. So fast forwarding, those women and men and people of all backgrounds have joined us. And this has become a movement to say every year, we're not just going to look at what's not going right. We're not just going to look at what they won't let us do, quote unquote, and what they won't give us.
Yeah.
We're going to look at what we do for ourselves. We're going to create critical mass. We're going to sing our praises. We're going to look at where we need to do better. And we have always changed the world, and we're doing it now, and we can do it again.
Absolutely. Wow. That's amazing. So one of the things that while you were speaking, that it made me think, we're seeing a surge even this past week when I was looking at the statistics for people who were giving. This is literally the first time that they're even contributing to something of that magnitude, right? And they're not giving big dollars, they're giving very small dollars, but they're connected to a vision, to a purpose, and they want to drive impact at their level. how do we really begin to engage folks, this new generation that's really coming into the marketplace in ways that we have not even seen them? Because there's a generation that is on the rise now. Their voice is carrying weight, but now they're putting their dollars with their voice, and we're seeing, oh, they don't play.
They're putting their dollars with their technology. I mean, so I want to use this example again because I'm still processing it. They use Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we used to go door to door, knock on doors, or you pass the collection plate. And they said, no, we use this in the office. And most of it is next generation, right? They said, and it allowed that technology, especially because the organizers had connections with the executives at Zoom, because Zoom doesn't usually have the capacity to have 44,000 people on one call. They were able to work with them and say, look, this is what we want to do. Let's figure out how to make the technology work. And they knew how to make the ask right on that call. And so there are kind of three new ways of working. First, the smart use of digital technology to go to scale.
Yeah.
Okay, what's been happening the past week is an example of how we can go to scale. And go to scale, the second point, and emergent trend is go to scale quickly. Okay, we don't have to wait a year to raise the money. We can do it instantaneously with the smart use of technology. And we had a focal point. We had a new candidate with a message that was able to mobilize people across all of the diversity in our community, all of the factions and the fractures, in such a way that we trusted the source enough to give to that particular entity. And so I want to talk about Black Philanthropy Month, the subject of this call, a little bit. We're trying to do the same thing. Most of our events are virtual at this point because we're global. You can't have everybody flying to the US or Brazil or to Africa. I mean, we're a huge global economy just in and of ourselves. And so we have to use technology smartly. I want everybody listening to the call to go to our website, which is simply blackphilanthropymonth.com, and just look at some of the virtual events happening throughout the world that you can participate in real time and give to, and have an instantaneous impact on the issues that you care about, whether they're in your backyard or in some other part of the Black giving world. We have to support each other more than ever. And I hate to say it, and I'm trying so hard not to get political, but we are finding forces that want a great America. For them is the America that my mother grew up in. And it was not a pretty America. It is an absolute miracle that many of us are on this call, that our forebears survived to produce us, and we have some level of success. Don't even think of yourself in terms of being a commodity. If you have if you have time, you have talent, you have treasure, you have voice, you can give, because those are the ingredients that convert our anger about the way things are into a real resource for change. Find people who believe what you believe and pool your money together to support your causes, and trustworthy institutions that can move the money, that can engage you in other ways, not because it's not just about money. We're most powerful when we're using our whole person for change. Time, talent, treasure, and voice. And so I want to encourage everyone to think of themselves as a giver, as a philanthropist, as a change agent. If you have $5, you put that $5 together with $13 million, 13 million people, you have a revolution. And that's how every single movement that has benefited women, queer people, Black people, anyone who was marginalized, any group that was marginalized and left out. We raised our own money. And then allies came later.
Later. Yeah.
Fund your dreams with others. Create Afro Futures of Giving is our theme for 2024.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Are there any I want to say funds that you guys are championing right now?
Yeah, I'm going to mention three.
Mhm.
I'll mention four, two in the US and two outside.
Okay.
So we have a great next generation partner, an organization and leader I'm very proud of named Floyd Jones.
Mhm.
And he has founded something called Back Black Movement.
Mhm.
Okay? Really important. It just says there's nothing wrong with backing Black because we need to be backing everybody, and some of the everybody is Black. It's just as simple as that. And so why wouldn't we support Black people, Latino people, white people, everybody?
Right.
But our society still, I'm just going to mention this statistic. Black nonprofits, depending on the study you look at, are only getting 2 to 8% of the funding. And you probably heard of the Fearless Fund because, giving and investing are flip sides of the same coin.
Yep.
And that is going all the way to the Supreme Court. And all those women did is what we do. It's part of our culture and what Black women do. We get together, we say, we got an issue in our community. How much can you give? How much can you give? We put it together. We make grants, okay, to fill in the gaps that society is leaving, to make sure our children, our leaders, our entrepreneurs have a chance. That is all they did. And there are forces in this country absolutely trying to make that illegal.
Yeah.
To say that we, as the people who are not funded fairly, we can't pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We can't use our own money to fund each other when others won't. And so they have created a campaign called the Fearless Campaign, where they're trying to make, because this case has not gone to the Supreme Court yet. Okay, they at a federal appeals level said that Fearless Fund had to stop giving money. And if these forces win, it creates serious problems in our community. Everyone should have the right, just like everyone else, to fund their community. That's all this is about. So I want you to follow the Fearless Fund case. That's one funding entity that needs our support, and they need not just money, they need time. They need us to vote our interests.
Yeah.
And they need us to get out in the streets with them and protest. There's Back Black has a campaign where they have identified dozens of very qualified nonprofits in the US, and you can give through backblackmovement.org. You will find them on our website to support Black nonprofits helping our communities at the local, regional, and national level throughout the United States. I founded something called the Women Invested to Save Earth Fund. We are the backbone organization for Black Philanthropy Month. And Brazil has more Black people than any place in the world outside of Africa. They have one of the worst racial equity crises that I have ever seen, where there is a young Black man executed by the police in Brazil every 23 minutes. Where Black women activists are literally assassinated on the street simply for exercising what's supposed to be everyone's human and democratic right of free speech. They have philanthropies. They have Black philanthropies. In fact, the oldest foundation in all of the Americas was created in Salvador, Brazil, in the 1800s, where Black community members pooled money to buy the freedom of enslaved Africans. That organization is still operating, and they're still trying to address some of the contemporary impacts of the exclusion of Black Brazilians. The WISE Fund has created something called the Black Brazil Campaign. You can give through us to support these community philanthropies, Black led, founded, and serving in Brazil. We have 5 of them who are making a difference.
Wow.
There is also something called the Nigerian Philanthropy Office. Nigeria is the most populous Black nation on the planet with many brilliant people, many accomplishments and opportunities, but many challenges. And the Nigeria Philanthropy Office is an initiative that is funding job creation in Nigeria, completely legitimate. Nigeria gets a bad rap, but it has some very trustworthy initiatives and organizations making a difference. You can find all of these organizations on the blackphilanthropymonth.com website. So you don't have to go do the research about all of the Black nonprofits in the US or in Brazil or in Nigeria. There's another one that I'd absolutely love called the 828 initiative. That August 28th is an almost mystically important historical day for Black people worldwide. And they, along with Back Black movement, are raising funds for those small but critical local, micro-local nonprofits that are providing lunches for kids who are not in school and don't have a lunch program in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
After school programs, it's very important to check them out as well. So those are the 4 organizations that if I were you and I wanted to change the country and the world, I would be looking at supporting them in any way that you can. And there are many others that you will find by going to those sites.
Oh, this is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think this is really this next question is really going to help ground us. What is helping drive you to be committed to this work? Because you said it, a lot of it is volunteer, right? A lot of it is out of the desire to see the betterment and advancement of our communities, our people. What is driving you to continue to stay committed to this impactful work?
I am a product of the wonderful capacity and love of my community and allies. And I have just always been aware of that. I have a very humble background. And for me, as a very spiritual person, I ask the question, why am I successful? And so I used to hang out with in the hood is not even with us anymore. And the answer to me is because you are supposed to be a channel of progress and change for other people. It's not just about you, it's what you can do for others and doing your best to create a positive legacy. It's not enough for you as an individual or just your family to be successful, or even for me, even just my community or the nation. Really, the scale is the world and the planet we share. And so my mission as I came of age essentially was to heal people, society, and the planet we share, and in the process myself as much as possible. And so when I started working in the field of philanthropy, I was quite shocked when I would hear from my colleagues who weren't from my community that Black people don't give. And that is really a racist stereotype. Sometimes people don't mean it. It's just sometimes we don't think of Black and philanthropy in the same sentence. We don't see ourselves. So I wanted the world to know, no, we are agents of change. We are the arbiters of our own destiny, and we are blessed. And we can do absolutely anything when we have a shared dream and purpose, and we decide to share resources instead of tearing each other down, self-destructing and competing. And the glass is always half full in our communities. We have many challenges, but our existence is truly a miracle. And we exist with love and care for others. And philanthropy is supposed to be love for humanity, not just about the money, but how you love yourself,
Yes.
and how you put that love in action for other people. And so essentially, and I think most of the people who know me would say that's what I've tried really hard to be about, and to be an agent for that kind of knowledge and pride in our agency and our contributions, not just to our nations, but the world and all history, and empower our kids to know that that's the capacity they have. It's not about, quote, what they, who's they? They are we. We create our future
Mm.
using our past as an engine. So that's what Black Philanthropy Month is about. And I tell you the truth, I'm really shocked it's still around. I mean, you have an idea and you don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but and now I've been doing, and I have a 44-year-old career, and 23 of it, I've been doing this in addition to everything else. And it survives because we keep having successive generations
Yeah.
who get excited as they learn the history and about what they can do beyond complaining at the kitchen table, that every single act of progress in our community started when we put our energy and resources together, determined to make a change. And so to me, anything is possible. I get angry sometimes, but I never get depressed or thwarted or um, deterred in any way from this whole idea that together we are powerful and we are the owners of our happiness and our future. And that's what Black Philanthropy Month is about. This year, we have a theme every single year. Last year, it was love in action,
Mhm.
reminding people that philanthropy wasn't just about money. It was about creating justice and actively loving everyone, including Black people. This
Absolutely.
year, we're talking about the future. I've been doing this for more than a generation. I have there's a cadre of people ready to take over. I'm so proud of that. Um, yeah, I've done my time, and the future is in good hands.
Absolutely. I love that. And listen, thank you for being a forerunner in giving us a framework to work within, giving us a model that we can say, hey, let's make this a thing and be okay about it being a thing.
Hmm.
Really, really excited about that. If there by chance is a young leader, a young entrepreneur who's watching us tonight, and they have this idea of how they want to make impact, how they want to activate. What is one way that they can really start moving towards that idea and getting people to maybe join forces with them? How would you tell them to activate that
Well,
first?
let me think. It depends on what the idea is, but I will say that whether it's a business idea or a community change idea, to start with their network. You can't do anything without the hearts and minds of people.
That's
Okay.
good. That is good.
And do your research, have your act together, live a life of values with character,
Mhm.
because if people don't trust you, they don't give to you. Okay.
Yep.
And so you really have to work on those elements, build your network, your community of support, and ensure that your character, actually how you live your values, is intact. Okay. Then learn about your field. Say you're very upset about the high Black infant maternal and infant and maternal mortality rates.
Mhm.
Learn everything you can about that field. Learn what's already being done. Not everything needs to be a new organization or business. Sometimes it makes sense to have a project or an initiative that benefits a pre-established entity, and then add value. Be a person of your word. Do what you say you're going to do and follow through and have some mechanism to track or measure what your outcomes are so that you can share them with those who have supported you. Always working from that model, recognizing that resources include time, talent, treasure, and voice. And I would say knowledge. You need all five to be successful. There is funding out there. It is very difficult for us to get that funding, but one of the advantages that this generation has that I used as well despite my age is digital technology. I mean, you can be anywhere in the world and create a viable, it's like this conversation we're having right now, or all the money that was raised this week
Mhm.
for a campaign. You can use the power of technology to to scale your impact rather rapidly. So make sure that you are proficient in technology as like a new net language that we all need to know. And the reason that's important is not just because technology is cool, is it can save you money. You don't necessarily need the bricks and mortar or spend thousands of dollars on an office space. That is absolutely not necessary in a world now where you can be a CEO of a major global organization working from your home office.
Yep.
And so that is a critical tool that we need in our kit right now. And so I would say build your community on time and talent and voice and knowledge and character and tech proficiency, and the treasure will come.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Dr. Copeland, for that. Just those jewels, those gems. I think the one that really stuck out the most to me was um, go to your network. I'm witnessing almost two worlds are existing. You have the folks who understand the power of community, but then you still have those lone rangers who say, I'm gonna do it by myself. And they will go out there and do it by themselves, and then they'll get angry because no one signed on, but they didn't really engage other folks to buy into the idea, and then they just become bitter. And we see good talent that now is sitting by the wayside. So I think that was such a great reminder to really cultivate community, build that network in a meaningful way, um,
Mhm.
in a meaningful way, in an honest way, so that you can see the things that you desire come to life. We can't do it alone. We look at some of the greatest movements that ever happened. They did not happen in silos. They happened because they pulled the right people together. In my role, one of my roles is I serve as the fractional chief operating officer for the EDA of for Black communities in Denver, Colorado. And I just got back from a board
Mhm.
retreat that we had yesterday. My colleague Trisha's on the line. She's our chief program officer. And one of the things that happened in our board retreat and the conversation that we were having was really centered around convening and catalyzing folks, right? Getting the right
Right.
people to the table is so critical to moving ideas forward. And sometimes I think we fail to really take a moment to think, who are the right people? Who are
Mhm.
the people that we can pull on to help drive that? And I'm excited to have learned about Black Philanthropy Month and the work that you're doing. And I hope I'm one of the right people that can help push this message even further. We have some of our Forbes BLK leaders on the call and just different folks that will watch the replay of this conversation. And I hope that they will be able to go to blackphilanthropymonth.com and learn about the funds, the projects that the amazing team that you have put together are leading, and how you're funneling folks into different spaces and connecting them with passion and impact projects. I'm super, super excited. And thank you for taking time to
Sure.
share with us tonight and allow us to be a part of your community that now can become our community as well. I wanted to give opportunity for those who are on the platform tonight, if they had any questions or anything, if you would take a few moments and we can have a dialogue with
Sure.
some of our guests. If anyone had a question, feel free to jump in. I see Dr. Kathy Tatum, who owns a wonderful nonprofit in the Houston area, Collaborating Voices. And Dr. Kathy and her team, they've been responding to what happened with the recent hurricane in the Houston area. And she's been a boots on the ground. I call her my boots on the ground friend. Sometimes you don't even see that part of the philanthropic work, right? We see the money, we see the big campaigns, but what about the folks who are in the warehouses, filling the trucks, taking the mattresses to people's homes, putting clothes on folks' back? What about those folks? Because they're part of
it. Takes all of us.
All of us.
That's right. Every time.
All of us. So if there's any questions, anyone has any comments, anyone wants to add to the space, we want to give you that opportunity. But if not, I want to give Dr. Copeland an opportunity to give us your final remarks, and we can get out of here.
Well, a lot of this, I am of the community, and I'm not saying I speak for all Black people everywhere, but I've lived in a lot of places, including and worked in them in Africa, the US, the Caribbean, Brazil, even Black people in India. And there is this notion of Blackness that has emerged that's associated with everything bad.
Yeah.
And it infects our children. It perpetuates, it undermines full internal and external acceptance of our humanity. And that's one of the reasons Black Philanthropy Month is so important to me. It's about what we can do. It's about our full humanity. It says there's no reason, even with all of the challenging acts of oppression, exploitation, environmental disaster, we sure have more than our fair share of the world's misfortune, it seems sometimes. But I want people to remember that history has been worse for us. Look at what our ancestors were able to do. And we are here. And even with all of our financial challenges, we are giving in the billions. What happens if we really start supporting each other as a national and global community, as many other ethnicities do, from a perspective that sees our power and our potential, as opposed to always starting with what's wrong with us?
Yeah.
So my final message is there's no reason for us to have what some people call Afro-pessimism. There is no reason for us to feel daunted, defeated, or depressed, because we always, if we choose to activate it, have the power of our community. We have our time, we have our dreams, we have our talent, we have our voice, we have our treasure, we have our knowledge. And when we pull it together, we change history and we create a better future for everybody. That's what it is to be Black, because we know what it is to suffer, and we don't want anybody else to have to experience the oppression and exploitation that our ancestors and many people today are still confronting. So go out there, pool what you have, even if it's a little bit, with others, and you will exponentially increase your capacity to achieve your dreams and change the world. Happy Black Philanthropy Month. I absolutely guarantee it, in fact.
I love that. We got 2 hands that actually went up, so I'm going to give them an opportunity. That was amazing. Let me see. Brandy Sims.
Hi, Brandy.
Hi there, Dr. Copeland. This has been amazing. And I know I kind of got in the butt end here, but everything that you're saying is just so in line. And also kudos to Sean for putting this together, because I know it takes a lot of effort to make these things possible. But these are the conversations we need to be having in every aspect. So my question for you, Dr. Copeland, really kind of ties into the importance of philanthropy work. as well as nonprofit work. And this is kind of stemmed from a conversation I had with Sean many times before about, why is this attitude anytime, we hear philanthropy, we hear nonprofit work, people immediately say, well, you should be doing that because that's what you're supposed to be doing. You shouldn't be paid. The passion
Oh,
that, how do you, I don't want to say attack or target that, but how do you reinforce the importance of not only the initiative, because these things are very important and need to happen, but also that people need to be paid, right? People need to be paid to do this work because they also too need to take care of their families. And
absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, what you're saying is true, so very true, and there are many layers to it. Now, when I founded Black Philanthropy Month, I knew that mainstream philanthropy, although we have wonderful sponsors,
Mm-hmm.
to acknowledge them, that I knew that it would be difficult to raise enough funding to be a separate organization. Okay.
Mm.
So I very much wanted it to be an initiative that was part of another organization, and I would be working as a volunteer with other volunteers. Okay. So, yes, I think pay equity is important. We have a story to tell in the US and elsewhere about working for free and and how that's wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
People should also have the right to volunteer like I did if they choose to, because there's some work that frankly is so important because it's working on issues that the big money foundations will not fund, but they're still needed in our community. And so I've struggled with this. I believe that people working as full-time professionals in nonprofits, and this is why funding equity is so important, so that we can pay our full-time nonprofit professionals, whether they're teachers or, working in hospitals serving low-income communities, they need to be paid. I mean, that's a basic ethical principle. But I don't think we should take it so far where people feel that they shouldn't volunteer.
Mm.
If they have means to volunteer, and if there is a need in the community, allow people to serve as well. The two do not have to exist in conflict.
Mm. I love that. Thank you so much. I
Mhm.
appreciate that response. That it's so helpful, and certainly aligns with exactly the vision. And moving forward with this is people can be paid, and we shouldn't be shaming them for being paid for doing philanthropic work or nonprofit work. And these things can coexist. So I really appreciate that response.
Right. And on the flip side, let me emphasize we shouldn't be shaming people if they want to volunteer.
Yes,
To the
exactly.
point, because I will say this, that sometimes I see with the new generation that if you have a volunteer program or initiative and you ask people of a certain age to volunteer, they feel
Mm.
like you're trying to economically exploit them. And
Yes.
this is part of an ecosystem. We have paid nonprofit professionals, we have volunteers like the church ladies, we have board members who are not necessarily paid in the nonprofit world. They are volunteers, and it takes all of us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
All right.
That's good. Dr. Kathy.
What is going on, my Ford's BLK members? I see Austin and I see Atlanta. Guys, Dr. Kathy with Collaborating Voices Foundation. I'm currently in my hub. Ford's BLK members have been in and out of here, Sean. So when you showed this, my mind and my smile literally goes, oh my goodness, because this means, and I come from old school, I'm an OES, my, third generation Masons, from Philly, but South Kakalaki. When I hear nonprofits, I also hear businesses, right?
That's
And a
right.
lot of times, when I see other races, they are putting money back in. And a lot of the corporations besides blacks are putting that money because they got that double tax where I am a business and they're sending this. So this is so crucial. One of our members just left here, and she was like, Miss Kathy, I teach in a way where they don't know I'm teaching. So she was here and she has a garden and she has all these music and she has all these things. And I asked her, I go, how much money do you put aside to nonprofits in your business? And she's like, well, is that even allowed? And I get that all the time. People are like, are you sure we can put money to the side for a nonprofit? What do you think the NFL is? She's like, that's not a nonprofit. Some of us don't know what's going on in our community. And I just love Sean, you're just a trailblazer. And anything you do, I know it's about your community. I know you know that there's a reason. So now, Miss Jacqueline got her first name. I call people by their last name. I don't know why you got your first name sitting there, but your last name, we grew up saying last name. So I appreciate everything that you said. One of the things that I love what you're saying is literally, I don't know if you said these words, but we have to be more woke. And when we are giving back into our community, especially Black communities, I'm going to speak from my heart. As a Black nonprofit and a Black led nonprofit in our nonprofit Facebook is 29,000 Black nonprofits, right? And I have formed over 322. When Brandy says, and I don't know if this was what you were saying, Brandy, especially church people, I always hear, well, we did it for the Lord and we don't have to show our work and we're only doing because we are on assignment. I struggle with that all the time because I see all these businesses and they won't show their work. They won't show, we're not showing off. We're showing the funder and everybody else what needs to be done. So that's a lot of struggle that Brandy said. People are literally struggling with that. Like, am I a volunteer? What do I say? But you go to church every Sunday, that's volunteering, and you walk in that building and you still give 10% without nobody saying nothing because the Lord wants his money. As a nonprofit leader, I cannot function if I don't have a business. Because as soon as something happens in our community, a murder, somebody needs something there, I love how Brandy worded. I guess you're saying, what do we do with it? But it's a struggle. And that's where the leaders it is a struggle. And it needs to be more of, they don't have a problem when when Black businesses and Black nonprofits are succeeding. We help the whole community. That's been from the day of time.
Yeah.
But other races, they get money and they only help their people. And then we're sitting.
You're very right about that. I mean, like I didn't want to. There's so much in what you're saying that I want to make sure people really understand how insightful and some of the wisdom of some of your statements are. So, number one, there is a serious funding equity problem for Black nonprofits and businesses. Black businesses only get 1% or less of venture funding capital. That's business investment monies. And for Black women, it is 0.03%. And these are equally qualified entrepreneurs. These are not people who are slacking. These are some of the best and brightest and most hardworking by any standard. That is a continuing economic justice struggle.
Yes.
Why so important? This Fearless Fund case is so important because what certain forces are saying is that we can't even raise our own money to give people $20,000 or whatever relatively small amount of money they're able to raise when, sometimes less or equally qualified white male-led businesses get billions of dollars for a half-baked idea. And yes, I said it. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Because it's true. And then on the other side, our nonprofits are not getting fair access to capital. It's 2 to 8% of large foundation funding, depending on what study you're looking at. And so what we have, and I got one more statistic. I just read a recent study that even in Africa, when we look at international funding, the Black founded and led nonprofits do not get equitable funding. So this is a global problem. And what that means is that for our full-time professionals, we don't necessarily have market rate salaries. We don't necessarily have good benefits or comparable benefits programs. We have higher turnover rates among our staff because people need to take care of their families. Okay. So there is a real, you're feeling it because it is statistically true. There is funding gap. The second thing I want to say, Doctor, in response to some of your statements, is that I strongly feel that every Black business should have some kind of philanthropy or community volunteerism program. If they do not have the money, perhaps they have the personnel who can be, those hands-on workers who are giving out the meals or, coaching the kids or whatever the case is. And this is in our own community interest to do this. Remember, we're operating in contexts where we don't have fair access or equal access to capital. Okay. So we have to be our own funders, right? So if you're a Black business, in your business plan and your business strategy, you need to learn what the policies are. Every single business can give away money and get a tax benefit for doing so. And so that needs to be included in the design of your business, no matter what kind of business you are, because this is how we start to begin to make up that funding gap. Okay. And remember, it's a time, talent, treasure model, right? You don't have
And
the
Sean,
money.
yes,
You
yes, ma'am.
you can give.
And I need to pass it to Miss and before I pass it, if I could ask you one more thing. How do you feel when activists are saying we don't get a lot of funding, but I don't hear activists say anything about each city has a food bank, and I see the churches in the Black food banks. A lot of times we got to pay for that. But even in a disaster or even everyday shelters, we as Black people, we, like you said, beginning, we got to fund ourselves, but we're not woke on how much some of these places that we get. I go to a gala and it might be the Smile Gala. They raise $4 million in 15 minutes. But then I look at our Black people be over giving all this money to an establishment that already, if you look up on GuideStar, the CEO gets 7 figures. Everybody in their office gets 7 figures. And then the Black people don't get anything. And I'm always bringing it up going, we got to look internally what we personally are doing, not just what people are not giving us grants, but we are the volunteers of what y'all touched on. We are volunteer at the shelter going, oh, we got to raise money for them. But then when we have a domestic violence woman or somebody that's in need, they don't answer their phone. So I don't know what to say to activists going, you really need to look at some of these places that get 6 figures, 7 figure, and we're not making no income. If I put on $500 on my income, I'm questioned. Somebody else put on 7 figures, and our people, I'm just talking about our people, will go over there and volunteer. They over there so happy that they made some food boxes. And I turn around and I go, did you Google IRS volunteer hours? That was $31 that each one of y'all walked in there and made, and over there with that person. They go, no, but they didn't make no money off of us. Yes. You did. You volunteered with them, but you are not volunteering in your own Black neighborhoods. So when activists are on TV and they're like, oh my God, we got to do more equity. But why are we always the volunteer for their stuff? And then I'm over here working my butt off and I got to ask people to come volunteer. It's still some things that we got to consider. Do you agree that we got to start being woke of the income that some of these other organizations that use our faces, they do, it's on our brochure, we do their commercials, but they are making a lot of money off of salaries. I hope I understand.
Dr.
You understand.
Dr.
Well,
Tatum.
I think all
Oh,
of
I'm sorry.
we talk about being conscious consumers. We need to be conscious givers and hold the organizations that we give to accountable. We need to be, we need to be accountable in our own communities as well. So there's enough accountability to go around.
Absolutely. And I would just add here, and we're gonna wrap up because I'd like to be honest with people's time. It is 7:02. But one of the things I would say is track the funding. organizations have a reporting requirement, and track where the funds are going. Look at those 990s. Look at those annual reports to see if there's an alignment. And you have that choice. If you don't align with that organization and how you don't have to give there. So I want to encourage those who are watching to give, to participate, to know the power of giving, but also be smart givers, be thoughtful givers. I think that is a great place. I want to thank you, Dr. Copeland, for really coming and participating and giving us all of these gems tonight. I would love to have you back in the BLK Lounge so that we can this. This does not need to be a one-time, once-a-year conversation, because what I really envision is we're going to create a culture of philanthropy, and that is going to be the part of our Sunday dinner talks. You know, what did you give to this week? Oh, who we giving to? What projects we funded? A culture of giving to really drive impact. So thank you all for participating. Thank you again, Dr. Copeland, and I wish you all a wonderful night, and we'll be back in the BLK Lounge next month, the last Thursday of the month at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Good night, and thank you all again.
Thanks so much, Sean. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.